I remember exactly where I was in December of 2012 when I heard the news that there had been a massacre at a kindergarten in first grade.
The killings shook the picturesque and normally quiet town to its core.
The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old.
I couldn't imagine being anywhere but with my daughter that day, who was really the same age as little Noah.
Noah Pozner was a perfectly delightful little boy. He had an infectious smile, and he was the son of our client, Lenny Pozner. In the years following Sandy Hook, Mr. Pozner's been threatened many times.
He was faced with just hurtful lies about the most tragic thing that happened in his entire life, the loss of his little boy.
Did you hide your imaginary son in the attic? Are you still him? Look behind you. Death is coming to you real soon.
Conspiracy theorists or hoaxers began to argue that the entire Sandy Hook event was fake and that Noah Pozner never lived and never died.
Mr. Pozner voluntarily released some of the basic documents that any parent has about their kids. And because he was brave enough to stand up to some of these internet bullies, he then became the target.
We learned about the potential for the case and decided that a defamation action against one of the individuals who's primarily responsible for coming up with these crazy theories would be a way of pushing back at the hoaxer community. Of course, we understood that defendant Fetzer had no resources, but my wife and I have always thought it was important for lawyers to do pro bono work.
So we went through small steps as we were drafting the complaint so that we could prove that Mr. Fetzer had defamed our client.
James Fetzer wrote a book called Nobody Died at Sandy Hook.
Some of the statements that were made in the book really focused on indications that our client had forged the death certificate. And how would somebody like our client go about proving that this was the real certified copy of his son's death certificate?
Fundamentally, one of the challenges that we had to face was finding a fixed position from which we could establish reality.
In Wisconsin, there's a statute that provides for the judge to appoint an independent expert to do DNA analysis. So we, I think, creatively used this paternity statute to have the judge appoint an additional expert who is independent of us altogether.
Jury awarded $450,000.
Certainly everybody on our team understood and believe in the right to free speech. But I think that sometimes lost in that is that there are limitations on free speech.
So we had to craft an injunction in this case that would offer some protection and solace to Mr. Pozner going forward.
It'll never be over, of course, for our client. He'll never be completely past the fact that his son was murdered in this way. Well, he was brave enough to stand up and say no. And the fact that there were some lawyers that were brave enough to stand up and say, you're right, there might not be any money in this for you, there might not be any money in this for me. But it's the right thing to do, to tell people like Mr. Fetzer that this is not how we behave. This is not part of the social contract of the United States, and we're going to hold you responsible for the things that you say.